second. Hey everyone, Arthur Fantastic here. A little bit frazzled here. Just went through a little bit of training with the legend, Josh Barnett, UFC champion. One of the youngest, only, John Jones by like a month or something?
Yeah, I was the youngest UFC champion of all time until John Jones won his title, and he beat me by like a few months. So I'm still technically the youngest UFC heavyweight champion of all time.
Youngest UFC heavyweight champion, king of pancrase, current producer of ACWA, which is a catch wrestling promotion that is doing tournaments here in America. He's also the president of
Bloodsport, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, producer, I guess, of that too, yeah. Me and GCW, we put on a hell of a show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's in the MMA world, the grappling world, JJF Nogi world champion, involved with pro wrestling, jack of all trades, king of pancrase, give him the crown. Today we're going to be talking about what's going on in the grappling world and the MMA world, and just picking a legend's brain as we try and continue on this channel to talk about catch wrestling and its significance in grappling. Mm-hmm. Josh, how are you doing today?
Doing good. A little stiff and sore from flying in. Actually, I've been traveling quite a bit. I was just in San Diego for some work. Then I caught a plane out here the 2 days after that, and taught 3 hours of essentially Greco-Roman upper body takedowns, ties, hand fighting, and a bit of submission work thrown in there too.
Yes, it was brutal. I recognized the Gravit from the Billy Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with, Brian Yamasaki had taken it to the...
Yeah. Well, Brian Yamasaki and I forget the name of the other kid. They used to come to CSW here every now and again.
Yes.
And they're based in Salt Lake.
They're one of the first channels that I followed that really helped me understand the concepts of catch wrestling. They trained with CSW Eric Paulson. They trained with Billy Robinson. It was a crazy time. And are you familiar with lockflow.com?
Yes, Charlie Pearson is a very good friend of mine.
Oh, you know Charlie, okay.
And I used to train Charlie Pearson, cornering
Wow.
for his fights, yeah. Charlie and I go way, way, way back.
I used to be super active on there. I was like, where do I find...
Lockflow was and I would submit stuff to Charlie. In fact, if you go and look, I don't even think it still exists, but if it does, or any of the remnants of it are out there on like Internet Archive or something.
Yes.
There's video or GIFs and pictures of me teaching reverse pinch headlock throw on Rocky Martinez. Rocky Martinez fought in the UFC, fought in Ryzen, he's the deep super heavyweight champion.
Oh, wow.
And Rocky is a student of mine.
Whoa.
Way back when. So you can go see an early professional heavyweight MMA fighter who's now based out of Guam. He's a Chamorro who was in Washington State, lived there, played football there, wrestled, and then started at AMC. So I was working with him when he was there, and then watched this kid go from just being a kid to being a full-on professional MMA fighter, running his own. He's got a promotion called Brawl in
even
Guam.
as a promotion.
He's doing great stuff. So it's great to see the people that you've worked with come up in ways that you never even expected.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm just... First off, I'm blown away that you know about Lockflow. I'm always trying to talk to somebody about Lockflow. I'm like, I miss it so much as like a forum. And I feel like it was a part of like grappling and catch wrestling and MMA history, at least for me. You know what I'm saying? And so I actually brought like a Lockflow, like, what are those called? Under Armour long sleeves.
Oh.
Because I was like, I don't know if you know this, but I was in Lockflow. Anyway. I have a whole bunch of questions for you.
In fact, all the people behind Lockflow were all fighters from Washington.
Really?
Even the guy that did all the web stuff, I can see his face, blonde hair, Joel, he fought MMA. Like, they were all fighters.
Wow. Yeah, it seemed like the people that were involved were legitimate. Like, everybody that was talking, like, they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I remember starting on there and not knowing what the hell I was talking about. You said AMC, is that Matt Hume?
Mm-hmm.
Matt Hume, he's so I was just having an argument with someone who said Matt Hume doesn't do catch wrestling. And I was like, he literally says he does.
I mean, he was trained. He was a wrestler who had trained in like striking arts, and then he learned his submission skills. I mean, he's an autodidact, so he was picking stuff up just by seeing it.
Nice.
But he learned the bulk of his submission skills going over to Japan, training at the Pancras Dojo, and then training with Sayama, Shuto.
That's Tiger Mask?
Yes.
Wow.
And so, Matt taught all of our fundamental submission training from the Shuto lock flows. So if I think about it, I can still do the full Shuto lock flow all the way around the body. We do all that.
Wow.
And I remember there was one specific day we were all training at the fight team, and Matt goes, our goal is to be the best in the world. And he goes, when we were in Japan, we trained, and Karl Gotch, he's the god of submission. So we try to see if we could, your goal is to try and learn more submissions than Karl Gotch. If you could do this, and better than kickboxer than so-and-so. And to try and always put a carrot out there to pull you further and further along. And this Minoru Suzuki told me this amazing story. So we're doing this anniversary book, I think it was, for Kami Pro. And it was, or maybe it was Kaminoge. Anyways, so Suzuki's talking to people close to his life and about fighting and pro wrestling and all these different journeys. And so Suzuki and I, we talked a lot about Pancrase and MMA and New Japan Pro Wrestling and but also about Gotch. And he told me a story how Matt was over there training at the Pancras Dojo, and he had a notebook and he's writing everything down, and he's really being a good student, to be honest. And Suzuki comes up to Gotch and he goes, Matt's, and he says to Gotch, he's got a notebook, he's really diligent about taking all of his notes and all that. And to Suzuki, he thought, oh, this is a good thing, this is, Gotch will be happy to hear it. And Gotch is like, what? Destroy it.
Wow.
And Suzuki's like, because Gotch didn't really want any of that information being able to be given to somebody freely without it being properly vetted. Him and Billy, we did end up doing the seminars and stuff like that for Billy later on in life, and it was important for me to get Billy out there in the world. So through Jake, I put that connection together, and Jake put those seminars and everything together and managed to put some of Billy's knowledge into record, so to speak, so other people could get it. But Gotch and Billy too, he would say, even with what they were doing then, it's like, I don't teach everybody everything because you're not privy, you haven't proved that you deserve to know all this stuff.
Right.
You have to be somebody that shows himself that in Billy's eyes was worth being given this info. And it was the same for Gotch, for Karl. He just wasn't, it wasn't that he wasn't a people person, he just knew how people could be. And to him, he spent his life developing all these things, and everything that he went through to gain them, he didn't hold them very cheaply. And, so to Karl, it was like, no, this information, I give it to you, and that's that. But it's so funny though, Fujiwara's got his notebooks.
He seems like a very analytical guy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Matt came from the shoot wrestling, catch wrestling. I mean, that's where we got all of our leg lock stuff. That's where I was learning front face locks. I mean, a whole bunch of submission stuff I taught today, and a bunch I'm going to teach tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, I got that. This all came from Matt, and then me being an autodidact myself, and then Eric, through Eric Paulson, through watching his videos, and then training under him, and Billy and Karl and Inoki and everything that has gone into me. But catch is the backbone of all these wrestlers, all these athletes.
Yes,
that's where they got it from. So yes, Matt Hume is a catch wrestler.
Yes. Well, there you have it, on record, guys. People arguing me under these videos saying, "Oh, Matt Hughes, none of these people are catch wrestlers." They're catch wrestlers.
Well, that's okay. Someone tried to say like, "Oh, well, Josh Barnett's not a pure catch wrestler, pure because Eric Paulson has a BJJ black belt and Josh Barnett's got a BJJ black belt." It's like, oh, okay.
Literally, I think the same person said something like that. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's like, well, okay, well, grappling is grappling, but the way I approach the game and the types of subs that I use and the way, like, I am a catch guy. And the funny thing is, I had never trained a day in BJJ until Eric wanted me to test for my belt. So, and I didn't even realize that's what he was working towards.
Oh, okay.
So I started teaching his jiu-jitsu classes for him. But for me, it's like, if I'm going to teach you gi jiu-jitsu, then, and it's like, first of all, people are going to be like, well, how the hell are you going to teach jiu-jitsu if you've never trained it? Because I've seen it and experienced it and competed against it so much. And I've done judo and done catch wrestling and amateur wrestling. I know what all this shit is. Now, I know that there are all these different types of games in BJJ and different styles and schools, and that's the same as anything.
Yes.
But your basic fundamentals of it don't change wherever you go.
Agreed.
So, you know, Eric would have me teach class, which always started with me teaching break falls, teaching throws, and then eventually getting to the mat, because, in my opinion, if you can't take a guy down, then you have no business trying to be... Yeah, I mean, you need to be able to be well-rounded. But, and from there, and then by being vetted by Hegan for my skills, then that's how I got my black belt, my second-degree black belt. But it wasn't because I sat in jiu-jitsu schools being a jiu-jitsu guy. It was just because...
Getting stripes and being like...
No. I went from zero to black belt.
I do jiu-jitsu,
yeah, I mean, it's their, yeah, pretty much. But, there's guys on the jiu-jitsu path, and I just wasn't one of them. And I know for me early on, in fact, until a certain point, and to be honest, I'm very proud to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu under Eric Paulson and under Higa Machado. I'm proud to say that I'm a Higa Machado second degree, and maybe someday I'll work towards a third, fourth, fifth, who knows, because I want to represent and showcase and, show the kind of pride deserving of guys like them. And for that sake alone, and because skills are skills are skills, if I can gather anything into my arsenal, become a little bit better, or become more knowledgeable so I know how to beat it, in the way that I prefer, then that's a win. But most of my life as a combat sports athlete, I intentionally never wanted to do any jiu-jitsu, have any ranking in jiu-jitsu whatsoever, because the BJJ guys were so obnoxious, so derisive, and so they talked so much shit on anyone that didn't do BJJ in the early days. And in 1997, 98, 90, I'm back then fighting, winning all my fights and competing and training at AMC, and you'd come across, it wouldn't happen a lot because, BJJ really hadn't grown that much, and there were guys starting schools who were purple belts and stuff, and so it was still really in its infancy, and it wasn't just that. I mean, MMA schools, all of this was just starting out. But people had, the BJJ guys had it in their head that if you didn't train BJJ, then whatever you did was trash. And they used to look down on you and kind of talk to you like that. So I remember some kid being stopping by AMC, and he came in and he was a purple or something like that. And this guy's like, he's chatting with me, and he's like, well, what belt are you? I'm like, I don't have any belt. And so he was kind of laughed. Like, how could I be any good without a belt?
Right.
And I absolutely destroyed him. Like, I would just submit him in seconds over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then he got really butthurt and left and never came back. And I mean, like, real depressed. But the thing is, the problem is the framing. Like, he created a framing that either, if he was better than me because I didn't have a jiu-jitsu belt, then he was looking down upon me from an egotistical perspective.
Right.
If he gets destroyed by me because I don't need a BJJ belt to be a good grappler, then now he takes it the other way, and he gets sullen and sulking and depressed, and it's like, but it's not like that, man. I mean, with the right mindset,
we're trying to improve. We're not just
right. And wherever you're coming from, and all my UWF USA athletes, man, they compete in grappling tournaments, be they catch or BJJ or what, because my belief is if you got to go out there and compete, go and compete. I did the IBJJF Worlds on a week's notice.
Wow,
and
I didn't even know that.
I did it because one of my students at the time, Victor Webster, he was acting all the time in Hollywood and shit, but he was training under me, training at Eddie's, and for a period there, I was working with all the heavyweights that Eddie had. So Amir Alam, Victor Webster, Rolf Varner King, and maybe one or two other guys. I was training all these dudes and coaching them all on the mats.
Wow.
And, for Victor, I'm like, look, man, you should go out there and compete in one of these things I mean, you're not that old, you're still in shape, you're young enough to still do it, and, at some point in your life, you're not going to be able to go out and get on the mats and compete in a big tournament like this. And he's like, look, I'll do it if you do it. And I went, oh, okay, come on, fine. So he signed up for IBJJF Worlds, No-Gi Worlds, and so did I. But he did it, and then because he signed up, then I had to. So on a week's notice, I called up the promoter, and I go, hey, man, I want to enter in. It would be okay. He's like, because I missed the deadline on this. And he's like, yeah, all right, yeah, you come on. So I go, all right.
Josh Barnett, of course.
So
Josh Barnett calls. You say yes.
So keep that in mind if I'm ever asking for something. I was in Japan. I wrestled for IGF, flew back home on a Wednesday.
The Grand Prix, IGF?
No, not the Grand Prix. Just Inoki Genon Federation, doing pro wrestling in Japan.
Okay.
So I pro wrestled in Japan. I was back on a Wednesday. I was in the gym. I think I rolled around a little bit on Thursday. I lifted weights on Friday, did 7 rounds of kickboxing on Saturday, and then went and won it on Sunday.
Hell yeah.
So that was just me, like, look, I know I'm in shape enough, I'll go out there and wrestle, because one, that was the agreement, and then my buddy Victor Webster, he took double bronze in his division.
Wow.
But in absolute and his weight class. But it was just go out there and compete, and I wasn't going to be like, oh, it's not catch wrestling, or it's not this, or it's not that. It was
grappling.
It's grappling. I know what the restrictions are. I know how the rule set is. I familiarize myself. All right, cool. Let's go out and compete, and let's do our best on the mats and let it all out there and leave it all out there. So when I throw these ACWA tournaments, and it is like it's worse than trying to pull teeth to try and get these BJJ schools to show up because of the rule set. I'm like, look, guys, you can see matches online, and you can talk to some of your training partners. It's not like you can't it's a 3-second pin, and you can't be pinned in the guard, and you can't be pinned if you have a submission on, because in my opinion, pinning has to be a total control moment. So
I agree. Yeah, I agree as well. Not somebody like
right. I want someone stuck.
Yeah.
So there's guys who have won off their back plenty of times in our tournaments, and there's plenty of guys who get pinned and plenty of guys who get submitted on top, and people that lose by points. But it's a great competitive environment. We had Adam Bradley. He's competed in them before.
Adam Bradley.
Sloan Clymer, he's an Abu Dhabi trials competitor. Had a bunch of people of high-level BJJ backgrounds, and they've competed in it either and won it, or done well, or what have you. I mean, and it's a very aggressive and fast rule set, but it's just, you give them the opportunity to go out there and wrestle and not even have to spend a ton of money, and they just can't get it in their head because it's not their thing. They've already set themselves to only see grappling in one light, and to such a degree that they don't even want to try something out for fear of losing.
Right, it really puts them in a box, and then you have Jiu-Jitsu Terra that go to MMA fights, and they literally try to pull guard, throw leg locks, which I love leg locks. I'm not against guard, but then Gary Tonin, Ryan Hall, you know what I mean? They're just diving for the legs, and then they're in the legs, and another person just punch them in the face, and they get knocked out because they're not wrestling.
Well, I mean, I'll give Gary the kudos, because he wrestles a ton.
Oh, he does. Yeah, that's true.
And he'd been very successful at dropping on those legs. But the thing is, I mean,
punches.
Anything can happen. And having a good wrestling game is very important. But more so than that, it's just go out and compete. Go out and get on the mats. Like, what's the? I mean, you're on the mats regularly, wrestling on the feet, wrestling on the ground, what have you. It's like, if you lost a match by some points in a style or in a rule set you hadn't competed in, is it really the end of the world?
Right.
I mean, you're telling me that you're just like a 3-stripe purple somewhere who competes, and your ego's too big to spend $40 to get on a mat and get guaranteed 2 matches, if not like 5, because we have full-on wrestleback brackets for constellations.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just
it's way better to. I mean, if you lose, like, it should make you be like, I want to do better next time. Not, I'm done with this. I didn't. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of like a coming in there, tasting someone's new cuisine, but not like being like, oh, I'm gonna really give it a try. I'm just like, I'm just gonna make you feel good about tasting it, and then I didn't like it. I'm never gonna do it again.
Well, I mean, I personally think that our format is a lot of fun. It's very action packed, and
I agree,
we're
yes.
very heavy against stalling. So if you've ever lost in a BJJ tournament because someone just got a couple advantages and just coasted their way, like, that can't happen in our rule set. Like, our referees are just not going to allow that.
That's literally, I've been doing actually a series where I've been analyzing the rule sets in modern grappling and trying to figure out what's causing all the stalling, what's causing, what can we do to encourage people not pulling guard, to sort of, because I feel like, I think I mentioned this earlier, I feel like it's like in bad faith pulling guard. You know what I mean? You wouldn't do it in any other situation.
Yeah,
but because you have to be engaged.
Well, it's born out of the rules of engagement of the competition itself.
Exactly.
And, I always tell people it's way easier to learn to play guard than it is to wrestle from referee's position, because everything's in front of you, you can grab a hold of it, you can see it, and, we are prey animals, so vision is very important. Having somebody behind you trying to grab onto you and you're not looking at anything, you're just feeling your way through it, that's a weird way of approaching grappling. I mean, if you were to say what seems like the most natural thing for man to do in a grappling environment, whatever, it's like, well, take them off the feet, I get that, but if they're on the ground, putting everything in front of you seems like the easiest thing to do.
Yes.
But however it be, just being able to abandon an entire plane of combat or engagement means then that you can double up on all of your other areas, your other skill sets. So it's like
glass cannon type shit.
Well, that, and like, you take all your stat points and you put them all into one instead of another, because you don't need to be well-rounded. You only need to really focus on a really specialty of an area. And I mean, if that's what the competition encourages, like, so the IBJJF, if someone's in side control on me and I bridge and roll them over, that's not a sweep. They won't give me points for that.
Oh, what?
They want it to start from the legs.
And I'm thinking reverse on, like, oh no, that's high school. That's good.
Yeah. So in high school wrestling, that's 2 points. In ACWA, that's 2 points. But in IBJJF, nope. But it's their sandbox. So I mean, they're welcome to do with it what they like. But the competition structure informs a lot of how the systems train, and like 90%, maybe 99% of BJJ is been steered and incentivized by the competitions themselves.
And I think that's basically the takeaway right now when I'm looking at the rule sets, that this is happening because of the environment that these competitions are taking place, where it's just pushing if you're just gonna, like, how some people, I'm gonna get into Warhammer right now, okay? How some people play Math Hammer, or they just they're like, I'm gonna play this broken unit that just beats everything, as opposed to, I'm gonna have like a nice army and really get into the game. And, I'm just gonna throw 3 plague tanks or whatever those are called, you know what I mean, with the blessing of Nurgle, and they'll be impossible to damage, and and it's like, well, obviously I could beat that with what I have, but you just, what I mean, that's not playing the game in good.
Well, it's min-maxing.
Yeah, right.
And that's fine.
Exactly.
But you have to acknowledge what it is. And so if you want to say, like, well, what I do is the greatest thing, it's like, well, hold on. If you have honed what you do to win in a very specialized environment, then I don't really think you can really claim that anymore. And even amateur wrestling, like in the Olympics, like with the push-outs, that's a huge. The push-outs and shot clock are now a massive part of the strategy in wrestling and freestyle and Greco alone. So I understood the concept of the push-outs, but the thing about all rule sets, and this isn't about BJJ or Greco or any particular style, whatever you create, however you frame and structure this, every person will figure out eventually over time how to min-max it.
Yeah.
It's just, it can't be helped. Or to game the system.
To game the system,
so
guys.
You have to be
I'm not the only one saying
the type of person
Legend.
that thinks about all the different ways that you could game a system. And that's partially what I've been doing with the ACWA is thinking ahead and thinking ahead. We had a lot of test tournaments. We ran a lot of different scenarios through and watched all these matches and tried to learn from how these things were running and what strategies we'd see evolve. But ultimately, you also need to have referees in that are knowledgeable and competent enough to express and use their power in that position as an official to steer the match towards the spirit of the game.
I agree.
And that's a very difficult thing, and there's a lot of subjectivity to it. So I get how difficult that can be.
In fact, if we're looking at modern grappling rule sets, they're actually leaning more toward taking the power away from the ref. The ref is just to make sure they make
Sort of. They like to hang back a whole lot,
Right.
a whole lot more. Except for IBJJF, they like to get involved quite a bit. But
Yes.
even then, I'll see times where
over involved, in my opinion.
they're either over involved or not involved at all. There's a really wide gamut that you run towards the refereeing capabilities in IBJJF tournaments.
That's
But
at the extremes.
they are the biggest ones, so there is that. But
That's true.
but we recently you had Craig Jones Invitational
Yes.
and Abu Dhabi.
I was going to ask you about that.
And while Abu Dhabi, looked like business as usual, except for the fact that attendance was down, interest was down.
Interest was down. It's on the TV right here, but you need get a paywall.
Through Flow, but and Craig Jones is a very charismatic character, and he
Yes.
managed to find a way to really catch the hearts and attention of everybody out there.
Your friend Hanato Lalan.
Yeah.
That interview with Gabby Garcia and Craig Jones. Even my wife over here, she was like crapping her pants laughing.
Hanato is he's quite the character. We go way back.
Yes,
He knows my old boxing coach too, Punchy.
you guys know each other real close. Up
Yes,
in the
real
mountain.
close.
Big bears.
Yes, big bears. Yeah. He'll never recover from that. But the differences in the two rule sets. One, people are quite familiar with Abu Dhabi with the first 5 minutes, no points, and then you start to see a lot of, have a guy pull guard, and then if this match ends up back on their feet, then it's like, okay, who's the better wrestler?
Right.
And sometimes you'll see people just keep it on the feet the whole time, wait until it gets into the second 5 minutes, so now if there's points, score their takedown points, yeah. And then, people not wanting to get a -1 against for pulling guard. But with Craig Jones Invitational, pulling guard is not penalized in any way. And as I was watching it, one of the things that came to mind was, if a guy's going to pull guard and he isn't able to really get anything going of any significance, and the guy who's on top, let's just say all things being equal, the guy on top should get that round.
Yeah.
I don't care if the guy on bottom had some half-ass sweep attempts or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
But he pulled. So he completely forfeited an entire plane of combat to go down there because he felt the odds were so much better in his favor that it would be worthwhile to concede that area. But then again, it's conceding. I think you should be penalized. Maybe not, if they're not going to run points, the referees and the judges should be like, well, if you're pulling guard, then it should already be stacked against you.
I didn't pay him to say this. He's saying this if it sounds like what I said, it's because we believe the same thing.
The other thing is what was the match that everyone was ranting and raving about? I mean, there was Tackett and Ruotolo, but Ruotolo versus Nolf. People were losing their minds. And that match was almost entirely contested on the feet with high-level wrestling and submission transitions and, ended in a beautiful knee bar. Two amazing athletes out there.
Ty's wrestling, amazing.
Yeah.
Totally, I was surprised that he was able to, tie up and wrestle with Nolf so long.
It's a submission threat. So when Nolf was able to get in there, he got his neck grabbed a few times, which made him have to make some adjustments. Now, Nolf, in a sense, he still scored the most of the takedowns in that match. I think he scored all of them, but it was some foot sweeps and other things. But Rutolo used his submission skills to create a bona fide threat to use against Nolf and his entries. And then, Tackett and Rutolo, that's aggression, attacking, guard passing, wrestling on the feet. What is the common denominator? It's got stand-up wrestling and it's got forward pressure and aggression. And who's the guy who won the tournament in the over 80? Nicky Rod. What did he do? He sat guard to wrestle. Sit, boom, up into a single, boom, up into a double. Like, he never sits and pulls. He sits down and
shoot.
Yes, but he sits down because he knows they're going to engage to guard pass, and he immediately rocks into an aggressive athletic position, and bang, he comes right back up into his wrestling.
He doesn't pull guard like a lot of other people pull guard. He pulls guard like one knee. Like, like how Aljamain Sterling sometimes goes to one knee.
Sometimes, yeah.
And he wrestles from there. It's kind of, I feel like that's what he's doing, and I think that's way more applicable, because even if his forward pressure is too much and you could pull guard from there, but if you're prepared and you're able to intercept them with that takedown,
he's not completely conceding the position.
Yes,
he's taking what seems to be a bad position to be in for wrestling, but he's engaging himself. He's setting it up to create an engagement that he feels he's going to win.
Kind of like donkey guard or something?
Kind of. I mean, he's sitting, but he's just making sure that, bang, he's the aggressor. As soon as you get in within that reach, instead of being up on the feet and hand fighting and head tying, he's coming up into the legs, and he feels like, I'm just going to out wrestle any of these guys anyways. Now, if I were on the feet, they're going to play super defensive. But from here, they think like, it's not the same plane of combat, but at the same time, he's still taking it right back into wrestling.
It's literally just wrestling from his butt.
Yep, wrestling from a butt and a knee.
I think that's way better than what we were talking about. Like Adam Bradley, he did some good things too, but in his match, I thought he lost against Pat Downey, and he kind of sat.
I thought he lost too, because I thought he was conceding too much.
I'm not the only one.
But I also feel like, that was a tactical choice. Me, if I was in his corner, I would have given him maybe some different advice. I'm not saying I would have had him do something other than pull guard per se, although I might have had him wrestle with a bit more aggression on the feet to encourage Downey to engage with his wrestling, and in the transition of the takedown, find a sub that way. And then I would have made some different choices I would have had Bradley use some different options off bottom. But the way he did approach that match, I felt like Downey won. Simply because it was too little out of Bradley, and the fact that he was just openly conceding that position, I'm like, well, to me, that's 2 strikes.
I agree.
And it's not like he was doing a poor job or that he sucks in any way. I don't think that at all. And I've seen Bradley wrestle because he's won one of our ACWA wrestling tournaments before. In fact, he beat Ethan Vistro, who I think is at DDS now, and wrestled in college. And
is that New Wave now?
It is New Wave. Yeah, I'm sorry, New Wave. And then, he beat Vistro either by submission or by pin. I think he beat him by pin.
Wow.
And there was Adam Bradley was out there with wrestling.
I was gonna say he's pinning people. I didn't even see a lick of wrestling from him.
Well, it was a choice. It was a choice.
He could, and I felt like.
And possibly one of the options could have been, one, he didn't want to wrestle straight up with Downey, which I can agree with. And then maybe the other consideration was that being like his first match in the tournament, I forget who it was against.
Adam Bradley or Pat Downey?
Bradley. It was that, okay, I'm going to use a game plan that will leave me with the most amount of energy for the rest of the tournament. There's another thing like...
there's that too, yeah.
I forgot who he was. It was a Brazilian guy. He was wrestling with a rash guard on, going into the last round. I think it was the guy wrestling in the over 80 division who got to the finals eventually.
Felipe Andrews?
Yeah.
Okay.
Andrews popped his rash guard off. And against Luis, or what was it?
Greg Kirkvliet.
Was it? No, was it against Kirkvliet?
Yeah.
Maybe, okay. Well, it was either Kirkvliet or the other guy, the Brazilian in the, who I can't remember his name, who's also very good. But the commentators didn't pick it up at all, and I'm like, he's becoming a slime ball. So that the chances of him getting caught in any kind of sub and being able to be slimed around the mat while if you're trying to pass his guard and being slick and slippery. So if nothing else happens,
he'll win this match.
He already was up 2 rounds to zip. I'm like, clever. That's actually a very clever idea. And that's him thinking, sporting wise. But
we can peep game. We can peep game here in catch wrestling.
That's true. And to be perfectly honest, I was incredibly disappointed with the CJI commentary crew. I felt there was a lot of down talking on athletes, a lot of derisive comments coming from people. Like the first heavyweight grappling match with the Brazilian dudes, the big Brazilian cats. One of them made it to the semis. The other one I think was the heaviest of the tournament. And they were just like, oh, well, we don't like this because it doesn't have this action or that action compared to these other ones. And I'm like, and these guys, and they made it, they talked down on them as if oh, they're just, they're wrestling slow and lame and boring because I'm like, on purpurpose. It's some sort of strategy, and I'm like, what if that's just their game? This is what they are good at, and it just, they cancel each other out, and that's just they're not capable of throwing some huge dynamic curveball into any of this. So stop shitting on them, And then at the same time, one of them snickered when Eric Paulson was mentioned as being in Ty Rutolo's corner.
Yeah, I thought that was so
cool.
I'm like, I posted on all the catch wrestling groups. I was like, did you hear that Eric Paulson's in?
And I know this is going to be on YouTube, so I'm not trying to get demonetized, but whoever was snickering at the CJI commentary booth.
We use harsh language.
Fuck you. You're a fucking chump.
I'm with him.
Go fuck yourself. Not a single, I don't know who it was, but I can say this. Not any of the three of you have ever done anything that could even equate to the fucking lint on the end of Eric Paulson's dick. So I don't want to hear anything from any of you. One of you is like a fucking YouTuber, fine. The other two of you, one of you, I've already had words with before because you were doing clickbait bullshit.
Oh, really?
On covering tournaments. So I already know you're kind of a dirtbag. Oh, and the rest of them, and the other one I'd never heard of, but you guys got to step your shit up. The fact that you knew all the competitors, you were hip to the different lingo from the BJJ side and some of the different games was commendable. Some of the energy was good, but a lot of it was shit. And, if you're going to sit up there and speak about what you see in front of you, maybe have a bit more respect.
I felt like they were very mercutable or mercurial.
Yeah.
1 second they'll be like, oh, this is, and then the next second they'll be like, and then and other times, like you said, they're very flippant.
That's it. Yeah, flippant is a very good way of putting it.
And I'm like, these guys they're going for $1 million. They're I don't know.
And none of them, not a single one of them, not anyone sitting in that booth knows anything about what that's like.
That $1 million pressure? No way.
No, or competing at that level. None of them have competed at that level ever. And so, it's also extra disappointing to know that they have all of this information and understanding, and yet they still do things that's just straight up shitty and flippant and derisive. Step it up, man. Do better. Just fucking do better. And you know what? Don't shit on coaches. Don't be snickering and giggling about. Keep your shit together, dude.
I agree.
Be a pro.
Okay. While we're talking about CJI, your recent opponent in the Pit Wigan Championship.
Oh, yeah.
Owen Livesey. He's a catch wrestler. He was in the bracket over 88. What did you think of his performance? Any critiques?
Owen, unfortunately, now one of the reasons I chose to wrestle Owen at that snake pit thing was he's the worst style for me to wrestle. An incredibly strong, short, stocky, defensive style wrestler.
His legs look like trees.
Yeah, and if he gets up on you, it's like he's gonna hang in there. He's not gonna do hardly anything, and almost nothing more than he needs to. Which I would say, I don't necessarily think that's a game he has to play. I think he's got a lot more capability than that.
Oh yeah.
But I do know that type of strategy, and with his first match was pretty good, but again, you see him play a defensive game so much, and then against Nicky Rod, it was
I thought
just.
he was going to do better against Nicky Rod. Because he was in that Quintet match.
It was a completely different setup, and now that Nicky had an eye on him, I just knew that it wasn't going to go well. But maybe I think some of that is, and for whatever reason, I think Owen has a few things like, I would call them structural mental blocks towards how he's employing his game. I know what I would have given him for advice on how to approach Nicky, but it was going to be a tough match no matter what. And hey, you know what?
It's a dog.
Owen was out there putting it on the line, doing his best, and I have to imagine that from however the results laid out, he was going to go back home and work on that and continue to get better.
Yes. I mean, I know that the British Catch Wrestling Championships were the weekend right before CJI. I think, was it September that the World Championships?
September 7th.
September 7th. Oh, it's September 7th. So Wild and Out is going to be in Orlando on September 7th. I just saw I saw the sign. You know what I mean?
Wait, Wild and Out still exists?
Yeah, I don't even like that show, but it was like on some posters here going through Pine Hills.
No idea.
Everybody's
No idea. Yeah, well, I mean, so I don't know if Owen's going to be there. I mean, he doesn't need to go to the British to get in there. He's proven himself plenty.
That's true.
And I hope that he comes and competes, or at least has some guys that he's working with, because it's good to get guys like Owen, comes from a judo background, now been doing some catch, and he's competing on the world stage. And it's great to see a guy like that. And I think people get so hung up on the performances of these guys on the mats. Owen Livesey is an awesome guy, and I think you can think what you want about his performances, or you can cheer for him or boo him or whatever you want. He's a good dude, and he's going out there, and regardless of my critiques, he's doing the best that he thinks he can. He is giving it his all, and he deserves all the respect, and he deserves to be seen in a fair light.
I hope to see him more at Grappling. I mean, he was in Quintet, which was big. I know you've been in Quintet.
Yeah.
Is that Sakuraba's?
It was me and Sakuraba put that together.
Wow. I mean, I know his son is going to be in Ryzen. I still have two more questions.
Also, that's probably something a lot of people don't know. Yes, I am one of the people behind Quintet. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't even know that. I thought it was just Sakuraba, because Pride, Japan, Sakuraba. People are going to buy it. But Josh Barnett, you're big in Japan too. So I'm surprised that they didn't put you more in the promotional materials. But you're like a Batman sometimes, it seems.
Well, I mean, in those early ones when I was competing in them, yeah. But these days I'm 46 with going on 46,000 in terms of all the miles on my body.
40K?
So yeah, easily. Except I don't have the benefit of like all the genetic enhancements from going through the process of becoming a space marine.
Wish.
I don't even have the blessing of the Emperor because I turned against him at some point.
Yeah, you are the War Master. Lupercal. No, I'm for the Emperor. I'm definitely for the Emperor. I appreciate the KS Space Marines. They do stuff. Is it like do you have an army?
Not anymore.
Okay. I still have an army, but I haven't played. But was it really chaosy? Or was it more
I had a World Eaters army.
Oh, okay.
And then I was working on a Space Wolves one, and I had a Blood Angels.
Oh, okay. So you did have some Imperial.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like the Blood Angels, especially because of the
Black Rage.
Yes.
I got
the Death Company.
Yes, the Death Company. That's what's cool. I mean, I bought the Death Company, and then I made like a stand-in for was it Uriel, or with the head chapter master right now?
Oh,
he's got the face mask.
Right.
Right.
I
don't know.
What is his name? And he's got a jetpack. Yeah, a jetpack, and I think he's got a melt-a-gun.
Yes.
Or a pistol, or
it's
like a combi bolter.
It's like the best
that.
one in the Imperium or some shit like that. And then he's got the Death Mask, which I think is cool. Okay. So at 40K, and this might be obscure for some people, but I know that we've got some UK fans out there watching this channel, so maybe they get it.
Well, Shayna Baszler's I turned her on to Warhammer 40K way back in the day.
Shayna Baszler?
If you look at her outfits in WWE, they're based on chapters.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look that up. I have to look. Oh my gosh. All right. Let me change. Let's change gears. People don't understand the Space Marines and how important it is to reclaim mankind and the entire Milky Way galaxy. we're talking about rule sets. We're talking about ADCC. Talked a little bit about the rule sets of 40K. Not really rule sets, but the lore. What do you think is the biggest obstacle for catch wrestling to become more prominent and maybe even become like a household name?
I think it's, let's see, can I distill it into three things?
Yeah, so
for one, lack of competitors.
Okay, I agree.
We're just not competing, and lack of competitors means that people aren't seeing you. And that doesn't even mean even catch wrestling competitions, which, number two, I would say the lack of competitions. But number one is lack of competitors. That would be competitors that are doing MMA, doing grappling tournaments, Naga, BJJ, ADC, any of that stuff. Like, I don't, in the same vein where I have a real problem with, like, the BJJ community won't compete in things outside of BJJ now. When you come across guys that call themselves catch wrestlers and they're like, well, I won't compete in that tournament. It's not catch wrestling. It's like, oh God, just go out there and compete. Because the original catch guys, everyone's all heroes from the old days of catch, used to go and compete in any rule set. And they would do matches. Oh, he's a judo guy, put on a jacket, do for the first round, or they would do all these different stipulations just so that they would have matches. I mean, that's what professional wrestling was back in the day. But the third and final thing I say is lack of competent coaching. Like, there's just not enough high-level, skilled, capable coaches that can create that can help alleviate the first problem. Lack of competitors.
I agree. I think the people who even train under catch wrestlers like Matt Hume and what was Pat Militek. I feel
Pat's not really a catch guy. He's more like wrestling and MMA oriented. And then there's issues like on a subset, like I create athletes, but almost all of them compete in MMA.
Right.
They're MMA fighters and they're catch guys, but
or like they're not saying. Well, I mean, maybe Victor Henry.
No, Victor claims catch. I mean, we all claim we're all catch guys and guys and gals. When I've got female fighters, but Victor has competed in catch wrestling tournaments, grappling tournaments, everything.
Whooped my ass twice one day.
He competes in everything. Well, and he won. He beat everybody at heavyweights too.
Oh, that's right.
In the absolute. So the thing is, my guys go out and compete, no matter what it is. I remember once I had a kid, Shohei Yamamoto. He was competing in this SJJF tournament. It was Nogi. There's SJJF. Well, there's a different league. There's the National Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Association, and then I forget what all the acronyms are, but they're like a competitive league to the IBJJF, but not quite as big, but there are some decent competitors, some high-level guys show up for that. But he was competing in his division, and knee bars weren't allowed in it. So he was wrestling this kid in the absolute, and the guy was literally shoving his leg right into knee bar position for these sweeps, and Shohei's wanting to dive on his legs, and he can't. And by the end of the match, Shohei loses by decision. I go, look, that guy completely gamed towards a system where he was putting himself in danger, but it wasn't danger because of the
rules won't allow it.
Well, right, the rules for your division. And I know maybe even that's some of the things that scare away the BJJ crowd, the BJJ trained crowd, is that, jiu-jitsu trained crowd, I'll say, because there's 10 Planet schools too.
Oh, yes.
Is that my ACWA tournaments have no skill brackets.
Oh, okay.
You just show up and compete. It's just like freestyle, folk style, amateur wrestling. You signed up, you get on the mats, you compete with whoever's there. If it's the Olympic gold medalist or it's guy who's never wrestled before, it could be either one of them. But we're not out there to make you the white belt, the 2-year training blue belt with 1 stripe champion. I don't give a fuck. That's like a 10-year-old black belt. Who gives a shit?
The only belt that matters is gold.
Exactly. So just get on the mats. And we don't delineate by skill divisions. We don't do a masters yet because we don't have enough of these running. But by and large, you just get on the mats. And people are like, wait, what? I could be on the mat with a black belt? Yeah, so what? Go compete against them. You can say, I competed against a guy who has, competed in who's an All-American D1 wrestler at the last tournament. There was a kid there that just was a buzzsaw. Yeah, he wrestled for the Wolfpack and at D1, and he was also a combat wrestling world champion, David Ramos.
Oh, combat world. Is that Japan or is that where's that happening? Combat?
Now it's actually based out of Bulgaria.
Wow.
Yeah, but and there's a Japanese section as well, run by Academy AZ.
Academy AZ. Okay.
So, but you know, to say that you got a chance to wrestle that guy, there were times where I would compete in these open tournaments in California, and sometimes, like I remember, I did this absolute tournament for money,
nice.
And I showed up, and the promoters come up to me and I go, well, where's, because I saw like a bunch of black belts were showing up at these things. I was like, I'll go out and compete, and I want to stay busy. So I go to the competitor, like, where the hell are some of these people? He goes, look, man, dudes called me this morning, and they're like, who signed up for the absolute?
Who signed
up?
And
I didn't. Look, I didn't. This is them. I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to be shitty to anybody. We got an amazing bunch of Brazilian guys and gals training at our team at California Mixed Martial Arts. Chad, George, and myself. And one of them, he's keeping his win streak. Luis Francis Canelli, 4-0, 4 first-round knockouts in LFA.
Wow,
incredible. He's such a stud. But anyways, according to the promoter, he goes, oh, who's competing in the absolute today? Oh, Josh Barnett. Oh, $500 not worth my food. That's it. And so some guys were just like, nah, forget it. If he's there, and I remember I was at tournaments as a coach.
Scaring people.
As a coach, I'm just there to coach my athletes, and literally the promoter was like, yo, like 3 dudes literally dropped out of the competition, just took off because you were there. Like these wouldn't. Like, I'm not even in it.
What the hell?
But then,
he's a boogeyman.
But then there were times, and this was the thing I love best. Someone would come up to me and go, you know what? I think it's the coolest thing in the world to be able to say, like, you got on the mat with, like, Josh Barnett or this guy or that guy. I mean, where do you get the opportunity to compete against someone like that? And I go, that's the right attitude, I think. And, you know, what do you even have to lose if you're a nobody to get on the mats with me? Or Gordon Ryan or whoever. Like, if they're on the mat and you have a chance to wrestle them, go wrestle them. Go after them. Yeah, they smoke you, so what?
Right. You know, learn from it.
Who else could say that they ever had the opportunity to lock horns with those guys?
Right. He used to follow me on Instagram, and then I got banned on Instagram. I got to go and find him and say, hey, will you follow me on Instagram? That kind of reminds me of talking about Gordon Ryan and talking about money and absolutes and everything like that kind of got my brains going. And it's going to help us, what's this called? Segue into the next question. I feel like one of the things that has been missing from grappling and even sometimes MMA, but MMA is doing its thing, is that the side bets. You know what I mean? Catch wrestling became popular because people were betting on themselves. There's a little bit of money involved. And as I watch and analyze professional combat sports more and more, it seems like the bigger they are, and the reason why they are existing and so popular is because there's betting. I mean, like sports in general, there's sports betting. What do you think that grapplers, combat sports athletes in general can take from professional wrestling and learn? You're a professional wrestler, you're a proponent for professional wrestling. What can people take to add to not just like their fighting, but how they approach combat sports in general?
The easiest thing to do, and the number one thing to do, is to individualize yourself. Make it so that if somebody is paying to see you and what you have to offer, they can't get it from somewhere else cheaper, because they will. In terms of the side bet thing, I mean, if you really believe in your shit, put your money up to back up what you have to say.
That's what seems to got Gordon Ryan so big, is he's making those call-out bet matches.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think the best thing that he ever did was when he started calling out other high-level guys and being like, you're all running. You guys are, you want it to be just so for you to even think about possibly getting on the mats. And what the fuck is that?
Right.
I thought we were out here to see who's the best.
Who's the best.
But you're trying to figure out how to sneak it, game it, just finagle it just so that you can have your best chance. And he was out there saying, like, I don't care, like, I'll beat you under any circumstances.
Right.
And I'm saying, let's pick a date, let's just do it right now. And people would like hem and haw and back out, and he goes, I'm put up my own money. And he had to, I believe that him putting up his own money and talking his mouth, running his mouth as much as he did is what made some of these matches happen, which was great.
I agree.
Getting into verbal
internet
verbal engagements with Craig Jones, not a good idea.
yeah.
Not a good idea at all.
He's sharp.
Yes, he's very sharp. But I think there is a good amount of appreciation that should be shown towards Gordon for making some of these matchups happen. And it's unfortunate to see the Brazilian side at times get very nepotistic to the point of just hating Gordon because he's not a Brazilian. Then therefore he can't be the best. And it's just like, guys, are we past this at this point? I mean, there's amazing grapplers out of Brazil, amazing fighters out of Brazil, and amazing fighters and grapplers around the entire world. We've seen Brazilian dudes getting annihilated by the Dagestanis. We've seen Brazilian dudes light people up and knock them out.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen them get submitted and tore up, and we've also seen them submit and tear up other people. And, the world is here to fight, and it has styles and combat athletes from all over, and they're only getting better, and there's only becoming more of them. So, I think it's great to cheer on your fellow patriots and compatriots and whatever, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being for your team, your home team, your country, your countrymen. I think that's great. But to think that someone like Gordon Ryan isn't the number one guy out there, when just because he's not a Brazilian guy, I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, I got a lot of that when I won when I was the Metamoris heavyweight champion. Like, oh, well, he didn't beat this Brazilian guy, and it's like,
you beat Gene Lister,
I mean,
who's never been submitted in competition. What the fuck?
Well, he hadn't been submitted for 14 years or something like that.
14 years.
And he was
he's not the best.
Yeah, he was an
eat the acai berry.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And the thing is, like, all of us are training with Brazilian athletes and cross-pollinating and making each other better. So to have that kind of weird negativity towards other athletes is it's off-putting, and I think it's good to be behind your champions and the people that you like best. But I think to just dismiss other people because they're not a specific nationality, that was kind of stupid.
A rising tide raises all ships.
It does, and cheering against me, let's say, against a Brazilian guy because he's Brazilian, totally for it.
Right.
Like, I have no qualms against that.
You're watching. You're spending money. Good.
But saying me or somebody else isn't good because I'm not a particular ethnic group or something, like,
you almost went back into that Brazilian accent again.
Yeah, it's just kind of stupid. And by the way, Metamoris it was not Henner, but Huron. Well, not I competed against Huron, the other brother.
Is that Henner?
No, Henner's not the one who ran Metamoris. It was why am I forgetting his name? I'm such an idiot.
The other brother from.
So Huron and Henner run the Gracie Academy, then there was the brother that ran Metamoris.
Oh,
I'm old. I'm old.
If you know who runs it, comment it down in the comments.
The G and a G. Yeah, they'll figure it out. And I mean, he trained with us some at CSW, so awesome. It's not like I don't know the guy. I just feel really stupid. And although I guess technically I'll remember his name if he finally pays me what he owes me. But nonetheless, I still also highly appreciate creating Metamoris in the first place. Absolutely. It was a really great event.
It was.
But the promoter, tried to get some of the high-level Brazilian guys to go and compete against me, and he said all of them said no, not Nogi. They wouldn't do it.
That just seems silly.
I know, but the thing is, I instead of talking trash about that, what I will say is this: there's a lot of pressure to win all the time now, whether you be Brazilian, American, black, white, purple, upside down. It's just that we live in a society.
we live in a society. In 2024.
The way the world is operating now, it's not so much that someone did an incredible job, even in a losing defeat. It's like, oh, well, this guy lost. Well, then, everything he's done now, like, just throw it out the window. Like, discount everything because he's no longer the champion, or someone beat him once, or, oh, he's been submitted. It's like, oh, all right, well, Gordon Ryan's been submitted. Everybody, all the top Brazilians that are the tippy top, they've probably been submitted in a competition at some point. They've known what it's like to lose, and yet they're still amazing. And that's just the nature of the game. So I can feel there could be like this real pressure, and for the same reasons why people would deride someone for not being Brazilian, so therefore they couldn't be the number one guy. If one of these Brazilian competitors was to lose to me, maybe there is a worry that, oh, these guys who at the same time would say, like Josh Barnett, can't be number one. Therefore now, this guy that just lost to him, we saw him as the top guy. Well, now, fuck that dude, which is a complete disservice
I think so
to not
too.
just me, but also to
the other
them.
person.
So
that's what I think that's I think that's something that people could learn from professional wrestling. You don't bury your opponent. You make everybody look bad.
Correct. And at the end of the day,
Bury.
It doesn't matter.
That's your term,
Yeah.
pro wrestling term of the day.
It's not really as important to look, man. They come from. Oh, I'm froze.
Oh, it's
There we go. The athletes are on their mission wherever they come from. We all have our different beliefs and cultures and foods we eat, everything. But we can gather on the mats, and we all, in our own egotistical ways, want to see who's number one and maybe be number one. But the path is the point, not the end, not the destination. So I greatly encourage all the Brazilian dudes that do BJJ, if they want to learn catch and incorporate catch, and hell, a lot of BJJ is filled full of catch wrestling these days,
Sure.
although they're not even aware of it at this point. But to me,
Yeah.
that's just as everyone's on the mats and they're picking things up and learning different movements and seeing other different skill sets applied and different philosophies on the mats, it just can't help but bleed into, especially the what you would call the foremost competitive grappling, which would be BJJ. So, I mean, I'm a catch wrestler, but I'm not going to complain that BJJ is the most widely accepted.
Right.
It's the biggest tournaments, and has the most competitors. No, my thing is I just want everybody to go out there and realize there's more than one way to turn a wrench, but also there's respect due to everyone that seriously and legitimately puts it out there on the line and really gives their all to these arts to help create and push combat sports to another level.
It's about a respect. But I 100% agree with your sentiments, and I think that's a good closing note. I think that if you are a BJJ person, maybe you watch this video because you talk shit, or maybe you're watching this, you're a BJJ player and you like Josh Barnett, you like to hear what's going on, not just BJJ. You're welcome to come train with catch wrestlers. You can find a couple of people who want to train catch wrestling or want to maybe after the end of a class do a couple of catch wrestling things. Just go out there and do it. There's no problem. And you were saying about opportunities. First off, I want to say thank you for the opportunity for letting me interview you, for being on the match. And for those who don't know, I did a competition. Was that 2018 in Jersey?
I think it was 18, yeah.
And it was the first heavyweight lineal championship for 100 years, right? The whole heavyweight tournament. And they also had an amateur tournament with different weight classes. And in one of my matches, I came all the way from Florida to compete. Josh Barnett, without being asked, I didn't ask him, he came out there and he started giving me advice and cornering me in one of the absolute matches, and I just also wanted to thank you for that. Like that was it's crazy because that blew my mind that even happened.
And
That's a
as to build upon that towards the end here, and as a closing statement, I'm a catch wrestler. I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a shoot wrestler. However, like I said at one point in this, I have coached and trained and been in the corner of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu athletes and worked with them and trained them and been on their side and had their back 100%. I have had guys and gals competing in BJJ tournaments, competing in no-gi BJJ, gi BJJ, Brazilians, Australians, doesn't matter. Like, I'm down for whoever's down. And if you're a BJJ guy and you want to learn some of what I got, I'm there for you. If you're a catch guy and you all of a sudden decide you want to learn BJJ, look, man, I can teach you that too. And I'll be there while you're in the gi to coach you through a BJJ tournament. And at the end of the day, I'm just glad to see everybody out there wrestling in one style or another and being somebody taking a chance at life to see where they can go with something and putting themselves in stress and all this misery in a room to someday get out there on the mat and see what they can make of themselves. And, that's what I'm here for.
100. I say emojis out loud. And once again, thank you again to the legend Josh Barnett. If you want to follow him on social media, on Instagram it's Josh L. Barnett. The War Master. What are you? Twitter was Josh L. Barnett.
Josh L. Barnett. Except the only thing that's not Josh L. Barnett is my official Facebook page, which is Josh Barnett Official. And then you can always go to joshbarnett.com, which is my official website, and you can get my merch there. BJJ Fanatics has my collection of instructional videos.
Championship Catch Wrestling.
Yes, and then we will have some new stuff, hopefully shot this year. It's planned anyways. And then I've got a selection of videos with Jake Shannon and scientificwrestling.com. You can go and download there.
Watch my interview with him, also on the channel.
And also, I think maybe Punishing Rides might be one of the DVDs or one of the, I call them DVDs still, one of the instructionals that people still love best. And those are people that have seen the BJJ stuff, BJJ Fanatic stuff. And I mean, look, I go over almost pedantically braking mechanics, framing, grips, all these small details, as well as go into entries and finishes and all that kind of stuff. But I want to make sure if you're throwing a double wrist lock on somebody that you know exactly how this hold works, where it's weak, where it's strong, how to make it, how to change it and affect it, and how the joint itself moves so that you can adapt on the fly. And that's my goal with this championship catch wrestling, is to make you a championship catch wrestler if at all possible.
Belt gold. We thank you so much, Josh. If you're watching and you're still here, comment, like, subscribe, share if you like this video. And as I always say, stay up, stay vigilant, stay locked and loaded. Shalom, shalom. Peace in.